We're live. We're live. Who's with me? 2 people. Welcome. Welcome to the live stream. So today is June the 18th, Thursday, June the 18th, 2020. And I'm going to be answering your guys' questions as it relates to approaching, dating, relationships in this strange time. We've got a trippy backside view of me in the mirror, if you see that. And it's a beautiful day. The first question I would ask you is, why are you here watching this and not outside on such a beautiful day? If I'd known it was going to be sunny and blue skies when it was raining earlier today, I would have put this at a different time. But such is life. Here we are, and welcome. So the first question we've got, is it okay to cold approach in London right now? Yes. The answer is yes. The difference between now and a normal time without coronavirus, the big major difference is that you've just got to be more cautious about where you're going, right? So you don't have the opportunity to be in the cafes, shops, restaurants, art galleries, museums. So where are you going to go? Even the streets, it's a little more tough, right? So where are you going to go? Well, the parks are better than ever. Instead of beer gardens in the evening, instead of outdoor cafes and kind of outdoor meeting spaces, we've got the parks. Everyone's going and buying a few beers from the supermarket or the off-license shop and heading to the park. So it's a great place to go right now. London Fields in Hackney is very good. Hyde Park, Kensington Gardens are great. Green Park's very good. All around King's Cross, which is where I am right now. It's 2 minutes from King's Cross. It's busy if you go by the canal, Regent's Canal. There's a lot of opportunities. So what are the things you want to look out for, right? If you're making the decision and you want to meet someone in this environment, what are the things to look out for? Well, the first one is, are they wearing a mask, right? If you see someone, a girl, and she's walking past in a mask, it's very likely that she's going to be less open and receptive to a cold approach, because that mask is the first sign that there's some cause for defensiveness or protection. So she may be living with vulnerable people. She may be very much with her head in the news. But more recently, I've been pointed towards some ideas on the actual NHS website that say that the numbers of people who've actually died from COVID-19 without pre-existing conditions is just over 1,000. The number of people below the age of 40 that have died from coronavirus without pre-existing conditions is 34 as of the 10th of June. That's about the same as the rate of people who die from car crashes. So it very much depends on the media sources that you're taking in. If you find yourself glued to Sky News, BBC News, you're more likely to be cautious. You're more likely to be extremely, defensive and keeping your distance from other people. If you're not watching the news a lot, if you're actually going outside, if you're actually taking this time to go out in the sun, look around, you're going to see that people are basically living life as normal. People are pretty open. Indicators of interest are being thrown around at the moment, and there is probably no better time than right now. I did a post about it the other day, but essentially everybody's waking up from a coma. Everyone's waking up from hibernation, right? And it's difficult for everyone. I've talked to so many people who are finding the process of socializing and re-socializing yourself into society difficult. So if you can get that little head start, that bit of momentum, and go out and start meeting people again, then you're going to have your foot in the door in a very important way that's going to give you some great advantages. Question from the boss, legend, all caps. Hey man, any tips for Barcelona? No man, have not been to Barcelona. Would like to go. Heard the beaches are great and people are friendly, but I can't give you any specific tips on Barcelona. Next comment, my eyesight is very weak. Any advice? Wear glasses. Wear a good pair of glasses, man. It's only a problem if you make it a problem, right? You just got to work with what you've got. So where are the best places to go, right? So I've been walking around, obviously, I've been doing a bit of approaching myself. Where have been the best places? I would say since I've been back, and bear in mind, I've only been back in London a couple of days, from what I've seen, Regent's Canal by King's Cross is consistently full of people. That this big space outside the front of the station, opposite sort of McDonald's, there's a lot of casual seating areas out there, sort of big concrete blocks that you can sit on. And that place has been consistently quite busy recently, with people sort of sitting by themselves on lunch break or after work or at other times. And so that's actually a great place to go right now. As I said before, Hyde Park, if the weather looks to be good for the whole day, get yourself down to Hyde Park, Green Park, and walk around there for a few hours. Central London, the West End have been a little bit less busy. I haven't been since the shops have been open on the 15th, but Oxford Street and Oxford Circus is still probably not the best place to go. I would recommend the green spaces and sort of parks and areas of nature as the better places to go and do your approaching for the time being. But I think increasingly we're going to see the streets filling up, and we're going to see the more urban areas becoming more and more back to normal. There's definitely something in the air, something changing. With every new sunny day that we see, people are becoming more open and more relaxed about living their normal lives. So it's exciting times, I guarantee it. I've got my first proper coaching since this whole since this whole shenanigan started. I've got the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I'm coaching 2 guys so far on the social recharge course. I've got one more space for anybody interested in signing up. It's going to be that push that you need to get you back into the flow of approaching. And we've got another coach. Some of you might be familiar with Les, but we've got Les coming along for that as well. So really excited to go ahead with that and get you guys back into the flow of things and WD-40 the rust off the old gears and get you going again. So the next question I received was, what is my opinion on spirituality? A comment related to a book called Letting Go. I would say the same with anything. As long as you have some sort of protection in your mind from dogma, right? As long as you have some sort of filtration system that stops you from getting wrapped up in these lofty ideas, I think some spiritual practice. I'm a big advocate of 10-minute meditation practice, at least in the morning. And I've said before, Sam Harris's Waking Up app is an extremely good way to get your sort of beginner spiritual fix. Someone guiding you through the motions of calming your mind down, meditating, getting into your body, feeling sensations, observing your lived reality. And I think when it comes to socializing and approaching women, there's very, very few practices that have been more effective in my life in improving my social skills than mindfulness practice, some sort of meditation. People are always talking about what to say, but they're always forgetting that the words we use are merely a container, a vessel for our intention, right? And our intention is almost always fuzzy and unclear when we are focusing on thoughts, words, what we should do next, what we should say. And they are inevitably clear, concise, and easy to understand and feel when we are present, when we are focused on the reality. That's all present means. It's not some sort of woo-woo esoteric idea. It's literally observing your lived experience. And if you can do a practice that encourages you to observe each aspect of your lived experience, i.e. the senses, then you are present. We talked about it before in some of the other videos, but if you are struggling to connect with a woman in the day, it is almost always because you are thinking about an idea, about a narrative, and you're not looking, listening, sensing her presence there. If you are present in the moment, if you are watching her, if you're paying attention to the lived experience, then you're almost always clear in your intent. you're actually able, you have the space, the psychological freedom to feel something for her, to feel attracted, to feel affection, to feel any of the feelings that our words carry as a vessel for that intention, for that original feeling. So not to worry about this, the words we're saying, or did I escalate enough? And not to think about it in those terms, but instead to think about it as, was I paying attention to the lived experience? Am I paying attention to her, to what is in front of me, to what I'm experiencing right now? So spirituality can be secular. It doesn't have to mean that you're adopting some sort of religion or you're following blindly some other mortal human idea. It can simply mean that you want to pay more attention to your lived experience. And to that extent, I think it's extremely important and very, very valuable. It can change the entire direction of your day. But I would just encourage you not to focus too much on the sort of, the demigod that told you the information, but actually the message that they're telling you, and not to get wrapped up in the scripture of it, but just to take the advice. When you get the message, hang up the phone, move on to something else. Could you talk about STDs? I get worried about them. Dude, if that's what you're worried about, then I think you've got a pretty good thing to worry about, right? If you're in a position to receive sexually transmitted diseases, then all you need to do is strap a glove on the old tool and you should be all right. I really wouldn't worry about it, man. Just be careful. If you're worried about it, take the necessary precautions that are going to protect you from it. And you don't really have to worry past that. Next question, Jamie Bell. Joe 3, next question. Will you collab with James soon? We actually tried to collaborate the other day. We went out to do some filming, but there wasn't that much around. We had about an hour and a half and we really didn't see many opportunities. James and I are both getting back and easing ourselves back into our sort of social flow as well. And we're all in the same boat, right? Coach or not, experience or not. If you spend 3 months out of the gym, which I have to start essentially from scratch. I have to start lifting lighter weights again. I have to train myself to get back into that routine of lifting weights. And it's exactly the same with approaching. We're all in the same boat. If you're finding it difficult, so is the next man. So is the next man. The thing that will set you apart is your decision to feel that nervousness, feel those butterflies, and just act, just force the physical action to overrule the psychological distress. And that's how you get ahead of the game. It's that simple. It's not about natural ability. You're much better off as someone without a lot of natural ability, who's an extremely hard worker and pushes himself to have the courage to take those decisions when other people don't. It's much greater asset than to have the natural talent, but not the discipline or the motive. Jamie, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. Can you recommend what courses Jeremy Meeks did to become the success he is today? Did he do your course? Don't know who Jeremy Meeks is, Don Ragnar. Please let me know who this Jeremy Meeks is, and I will be happy to have a look at that. Hey, Sam. So here in the Netherlands, everything is still closed, and even in Amsterdam, there aren't a lot of people on the street. Even on the 1st of July, they make a law for being 1.5 meters from each other. Interesting, man. I would think Amsterdam would be a place that would have this wrapped up a little bit more than most places. But look, you've got to remember that whilst it's important to pay attention to the experts, right, and to pay attention to people who have researched and understand more than we do, we cannot ignore our own intuition, and we cannot ignore our own specific set of circumstances and the people that we're likely to meet. If you are a low-risk individual, and by that I mean 34 people under the age of 40 without pre-existing conditions have died so far in the UK, you're extremely low risk and virtually non-existent risk if you are under the age of 40 and you don't have pre-existing conditions. If you meet some other individual, an attractive woman who is in the same boat and she's not too concerned about wearing a mask, There's absolutely nothing stopping you from going and saying hello to her in the Netherlands, in London, in Paris, in Germany, wherever you are. So just remember that though it's important to pay attention to those who know more than us, you don't entirely drown your own intuition in a sea of other people's opinions and pop science. You got to take it into your own hands to some extent and make the decision that seems most pragmatic and rational to you at the time. Jack Pastor, 3 questions, all about Brazil. Okay. 1, is it true that Brazil women are either really beautiful or really unattractive? No, that's not true. There is a broad spectrum of appearance in Brazil, just as virtually anywhere in the world. I think probably one stereotype that might be true of Brazilian women is that they're certainly more sensual in the way that they behave and in the way that they hold and carry themselves, in their body language, in the way that they communicate, than perhaps Eastern or Western European women. There is a lot more energy and life in somewhere like Rio de Janeiro. That's not a blanket statement across the rest of Brazil. If you have a culture that is very touchy and personable and sexually open and socially confident, and then they also happen to live in 30-degree heat by a beautiful beach and be a tourist hotspot, then that's like the perfect storm of attractiveness. So yeah, Brazilian women in Rio de Janeiro are very attractive, but no, I don't think there's a stereotype to be made that they're either beautiful or unattractive. I think that there's someone for everyone over there, depending on what your taste is. Certainly, if you like people who are more curvaceous and voluptuous, then they're going to be very attractive to you. When am I going back? 23rd of August, I will be back in Brazil. Back in Rio, probably until December, and then I'll come back here. How hard is it to pick up women in Brazil? Let's say how hard is it to talk to women in Brazil? It's really easy. It's really easy. Give me a sec. I have hay fever. I've got this like steroid stuff up my nose. If anybody has hay fever in this weather, I recommend that. You get the little nose pump and it works wonders. How hard is it to talk to women in Brazil? They're really open and really friendly. I think one thing that tends to happen in the UK is that the very act of approaching someone is almost the point, right? The way into the conversation is almost the climax of the conversation, because it seems like such an unusual thing to do. In Brazil, one of the most kind of different things that you need to adapt to is the fact that it's so normal. You can approach someone and it's as if they were expecting it, right? They're like, oh, cool, thanks, right? And they're waiting for you to kind of get to the point. It's not enough just to go and approach, and they're not going to lavish you with praise for saying hello. It's something that's very institutionalized into the culture. And so conversations are easy. It's very normal for people to talk. Indicators of interest are an absolute given. Women are very forthcoming about wanting to speak with someone, but you need attitude in Brazil. Most of the time, particularly if you're at the bars or if you're in the sort of in the streets and in the outdoor bars at night, it will pay dividends if you have a bit of personality, if you convey a bit of character, right? It doesn't help if you're feeling nervous, right? And everyone does, and everyone feels a little bit insular and introspective at times. In Brazil, you want to shake that off as much as you can. You want to just get going straight away, because once you're in some sort of social flow state, conversations come thick and fast, and you're going to be on a roll, getting loads of momentum, making loads of friends, getting phone numbers. It's a lot of fun. You really just got to shake off any of the anxiety and that sort of momentary weakness that you feel, and just get into the flow of things. And then it's amazing over there. So I hope that answers your question, Jack. Jamie, I was watching Prisma King. I know him, and he said that most coaches that approach in the day are very poor at approaching in the day, as all they do is spam the same approach and openers all day. What are your thoughts? Yeah, I think he's absolutely right. I think he's actually very insightful. I think he's very insightful about his feedback on different coaches, and he understands this Charisma King, charisma with a K for anybody interested in his channel. He's very insightful and he understands social nuances, right? So I find that a lot of videos, I'm very open about the fact that I don't think that the videos on my channel in any way are perfect examples of what to do in an interaction. I think there's always, I've talked about it before, but there's always a sense when you're being filmed doing something, particularly something that is apparently private, but actually there's a camera. There is some level of small deception there that is very difficult to act away, right? The whole idea is that you're authentic, but you're being filmed, and she doesn't know that. And so the videos that I put up on my channel, though I think they can be very helpful, and I think some of them are very good model interactions, they're not the best ones that I do. Unfortunately, the best interactions that I have are not going to be ones that are on camera, right? Because if that interaction went really well and I start seeing that girl, then she's not, in most cases, she's not going on YouTube. That's the truth of it. And normally, if I'm not being filmed, then I don't have anything lurking under the surface, any sense of deception lurking. So infields are just one of those impossible paradoxes where they're completely necessary, but they're also very much situated in a moral gray area. And for that reason, I think a lot of coaches would probably think the same thing, that they're never the perfect example. But I think he's absolutely right. I think any time that you get stuck into a habit of saying the same things over again in the same way and getting into that robotic pattern of repetition, I think you need to start peeling back the layers of bullshit, essentially, the layers of the crutches and the easy ways in and the easy ways out, and you need to start from scratch. I think it's a really good practice not to add more to your conversational arsenal, but to take away. Most of the process of improving your communication skills is done by peeling back unnecessary layers of sort of learned clutter, rather than to add new words or new systems to you. You want to simplify things as much as possible. The Occam's razor analogy, that the simplest solution, without more evidence to suggest otherwise, the simplest solution is usually the best one. And I think that's true here. If you're trying to improve, it's best to think, what am I doing too much of? What veneers do I need to destroy in order to speak more clearly and communicate more authentically, rather than adding to your conversational system? Men first. How to deal with thoughts that I am not good looking enough when seeing a beautiful girl. I'm tall and average looking. So to answer that question, essentially everybody everywhere is going to have a list of their own insecurities, right? We have evolved to perseverate, to think incessantly on things, on our insufficiencies or our assumed insufficiencies. So anyone in the world, someone who's extremely good looking and extremely tall and very socially confident, they're going to have anxieties in different areas, right? They're going to have anxieties about their looks fading, or worrying that people are only kind to them and they're only socially popular because of their looks, and without that superficial veneer they would be unattractive, right? There is no limit to the anxieties and the problems that we can perseverate on, and whatever they are, whether it's you're thinking you're not good looking enough, you're not sociable enough, you're not funny enough, you're not confident enough, that's just your set of problems, and everybody has their own set. So the only way to get over that is to stop thinking. And the way to stop thinking, you cannot just stop thinking, but it's to pay attention to something else. If you tell your brain, stop thinking, your brain just hears thinking, and you start thinking about not thinking. The brain doesn't understand negatives. we work by anchors. So we hear a word and we link it to past experiences. This is neuro-linguistic programming in its most basic form. So if you want to stop thinking about your problems, stop perseverating on your problems, then you focus on something else, right? So what do you focus on? Well, you could focus on positive things. You could focus on what's good about you and what you're happy about. But again, in my experience, going back to the spirituality question, the best thing to pay attention to is your lived experience, is to the spectrum of light, color, and shade in front of you, the subtle sounds of a fan whirring in the background, or the wind blowing in the trees, the smell, what can you smell? What is the sensation of the wind and the air upon your face? These are all experiences that are very easy to pay attention to. And once you do pay attention to them, your mind is alleviated of all of the stories and the narratives. And you just pay attention to the only thing you know is real, which is your consciousness, your experience. So if you are worrying about your attractiveness or anything else, you cannot simply stop thinking about that. You can only re-divert your attention onto something more productive. And in this case, your lived experience is the most productive thing that you can divert your attention to. Dequivius Gengar. I think some of you just make the most difficult to pronounce names just to enjoy people having to read them out on a live stream. But I think I'm skipping ahead. You're welcome, Leek from the Netherlands. Waterguard Jackson. Hi, I tried to do my first cold approach to a random girl on the street and I couldn't do it. Can you give me some advice? You tried to do it, but you couldn't. Well, what exactly couldn't you do? Could you not physically get in front of her? Because again, if you see someone that you like the look of, your mind will immediately start thinking thoughts and you will set off a chain reaction, which ultimately culminates in a million excuses why you shouldn't do it, one of which prevails and stops you from taking the action. So if you see somebody you like, focus your attention on that person, hold your attention there, take the physical action that enables you to be face-to-face with that person, and then let the rest sort itself out. If you are paying attention to the stimulus in the environment, to the person you want to talk to, and nothing else, and every time a thought comes, you redirect your attention back to the person, look them in the eye, look at what they're wearing, look at how they're standing, then you are going to be present-minded and you are not going to have room in your mind for thoughts to paralyze you. So that is the advice that works. There is no obviously there is no easy way, right? You could say, well, how do I do that? That's hard. It is hard, yes, but it is possible for everybody. And if you're not doing it, somebody else is. And the only difference between them and you is that they took the action and you didn't take the action. So take the action. I feel like a lot of approaches going well has more about how the girl responds rather than about how I am talking to her. That's true. That's true. Look, this is to some extent a numbers game, right? The law of averages suggests that if you talk to one individual in the daytime, one total stranger in the daytime, the chances are you're not going to end up in a relationship with that stranger, right? If it's a girl and you're a guy, it's highly unlikely that you're going to end up in a relationship with her. Well, why? Well, because you're two individuals. Not all two individuals are compatible, dissimilar interests, lack of chemistry and connection. She might be nervous and shy. She might be in a rush to be somewhere. She might have a boyfriend or a husband. She might simply not be in the mood. She might receive bad news this morning. There is a million reasons why it's not going to work, and a couple of reasons, a couple of situations in which it might work. It is not your job to make it work every time. The only thing you've got to do is play the law of averages, right? Keep going and wait and create your own luck. Sometimes you're going to get lucky and she's going to respond well to you. She's in a good mood. She wants a conversation. She's single. She's not in a rush. If you do it enough times, you're going to get one of those responses where she's just pleasant. She's just nice and you're feeling good and she's feeling good and you have a great interaction. And often it's that we need to get the momentum, to actually get going and get our social flow. So people say, isn't there, basically the question is, isn't there a level of luck to the way that she responds to you? Well, yes, there is. But if you do the action enough times, then you're creating enough opportunities for luck that some of those opportunities are going to materialize, and you're going to have great interactions and amazing experiences. So you've got to play the law of averages and just keep going, right? You've got to find your momentum, that point at which your subconscious mind takes over, and you can just pay attention to the individual, and your subconscious mind is trusted to deliver the content, to deliver what you have to say in the subject matter without you focusing on it. So I would recommend thinking about it through that lens, and not thinking just, oh, I got lucky or I got unlucky. If you create enough opportunities for luck, some of them will materialize into positive experiences. Jack Pastor, 3 more questions. Did you end up going out with any of the girls in your Brazil video? Yes. 2, how safe is Rio? Parts of Rio are safe. Nowhere is completely safe. Parts of Rio, look, it's a really difficult question to answer, man. I've spent over a year in Rio now. I've never had any problems. So it's safe to that extent. And I'm not exactly one to avoid a dark alley at 2 a.m. in the morning. I quite like putting myself in risky situations because I find that you build up a sort of a defense to risky situations. I think in most situations, they're not innately dangerous. It's how you respond. When I see people who are sort of fresh off the boat to Rio, guys that have just arrived from another country, I can almost always tell them a mile away, because they're walking around sort of like this, looking around. You can tell that they've heard stories that it's dangerous, and you can spot them a mile away, and they're making themselves targets. You can see them in a crowd of people, and they make themselves targets by worrying. So I think you need to build up immunity to fear. And once you do that, people just don't want to mess with you, because even if you look like me with blonde hair and pale skin, clearly not from Rio de Janeiro, but if I just walk around with a smile on my face, my shoulders back, chilling out, saying hi to people, smiling at people, no one's going to come to me, because they just assume that I'm not a target, right? They assume that I know something, or that I'm in some way protected, because otherwise, why would I be able to feel so confident and natural in that environment? So, I'm not particularly safe about Rio. I go wherever I want to go, really, within reason. I've never had any problems. I think you're safe if you're not worried about, if you're paying attention, but you're not walking around in a state of fear. You need to network. You need to know people. You need to understand how the culture works, and that will give you that immunity to dangerous situations. Can you wear jeans? Is that a question? Can you wear jeans? I can. Would you? A lot of people in Rio do wear jeans. It's a bit sweaty for me. I prefer to wear linen or something. Shorts or linen is probably better. 3, did you get turned down in Rio? If so, how did you pull back up? Yeah, all the time. More so than in London, I get turned down in Rio, because I think there's, as I said earlier, there's more of a reliance on kind of attitude. And I'm fairly extroverted, but I'm not always on point by any stretch of the imagination. So when I start approaching after a while off, or if I go out in the morning and start, I'm normally not extremely loose and fully confident and full of attitude. That's a process that I sort of warm up to over time. And so if you don't have a level of blasé and kind of charismatic vibe and energy, then women in Rio don't have a lot of patience normally. The kind of women that you're going to be really interested in don't have patience for sort of nervousness and shyness. It's much more, the currency of romance is much more working in the field of beleza, as they call it, which is like cool, chilled, having a vibe, having a sexual energy. So how do you pull yourself back up? Well, the same way that you always do. You're going to get rejected hundreds of times. Everybody has, everybody will. You just have to keep going. And it's as simple as that. And it's possible for everyone. So take the action. What does it mean when a girl blows you out and ignores you? Absolutely nothing. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's a great question, though. What does it mean when that happens? It doesn't mean anything. The greatest problem that we have as men is that we interpret a girl not wanting to talk to us as a personal jab or insult, and it's not. She doesn't know you. She doesn't know who you are, what you're like, anything about you. She virtually doesn't see you. She just sees figure in front of her, thoughts in her mind, diverts the obstacle. It's a fight or flight response. It has absolutely no reflection on you. And if you can learn, or at least stabilize your self-assessment so that you're not feeling personal damage, so that you're not feeling any sense that it was a personal attack or any sense that any of this is personal, then you're going to be absolutely fine and you're going to be able to recover. If you let other people who don't know you's opinions about you affect you, you're going to be dragged down. You're going to be reliant on external validation, and you're going to be in the grip of your subconscious mind, of your ego. It's really not a good place to be. So what does it mean when a girl what does it mean when a girl blows you out and ignores you? It means absolutely nothing. And the sooner you realize that it means nothing, the easier it's going to be for you to get on with it and take the action that you need to take to get the relationships that you want. And I say relationships in the broadest sense of the word. It doesn't have to be a monogamous, committed relationship. I just mean relationships. It could be a friend, contact, network, girlfriends, whatever you like. Jack, if you want my advice, post short 3-minute controversial Q&A videos that will pop your channel on the YouTube algorithm. Okay, I'm happy to, if you'd like to flesh that out a little bit more in private, mate, I would be happy to delve into that. I don't know about controversial stuff for the sake of it. I saw someone else, a guy called A.G. Hayden, doing controversial videos assessing other dating coaches. And to be honest, I don't really want to get into that territory. I don't really consider, myself as part of an industry. I just think I'm going out as a normal person who's fairly experienced with approaching women and trying to give feedback on my experience to it to help other people do it, right? And motivate you guys. I'm not really interested in cementing myself as a figure in the dating industry. I think it's just it's another excuse for a lack of religion, right? You've got no church to go to, so you go to the PUA church. I'm not interested in any of that. I don't consider myself a part of any industry. I don't think it's worth getting wrapped up in petty beefs or political controversy. It's not my area. It doesn't make me a better person when I focus on that stuff. So I will leave that to A.G. Hayden at the moment. He's recently done one on why Tusk is the 5th worst dating coach in the world. Quite entertaining, but again, it's a little bit petty, I think. So to each our own. What are your thoughts on this quote? Dating coaches are like doctors who tell you you're not dying when you have stage 4 terminal cancer. I think it's meaningless, man. It doesn't mean anything. It's a blanket statement. There's no nuance to that. It doesn't define what dating coach. It's not even clear exactly what dating coach is relative to life coach, social skills coach, personal development coach, pickup artist. I don't like this group identity, trying to group individuals together and create some sort of, industry out of it. I don't think it's necessary. Do you use demonstrations of higher value routines after your direct opener instead of the assumptions? And what is your opinion of the mystery method? Do you suggest to use this in day game? Good question. I think I'm going to answer the second part of that first. I think the mystery method I read in about 2012, I think. I read that, and I found it utterly, utterly fascinating. I think it's amazing. I think it's just an amazing piece of work. It's amazing how he took evolutionary biological principles and transferred it onto a sort of dating and accessible vehicle of activity, right? A way that you can actually materially do the science that you learn in evolutionary biology. However, I think that in a lot of cases, it's important to understand certain things, certain theories, certain systems, certain ideas, right, about value and value exchange. And, if you chase a woman, then the assumption is that her value is higher and yours is lower, and that will be reflected in both of your behavior. So if you don't chase her, but you just treat her like a human being, then your value remains roughly equal in both of your eyes, and a conversational exchange is able to occur somewhat spontaneously. Look, I think it all makes perfect sense. However, once again, I don't think you should bring any theory into the game itself, right? It's like the example I would use is Roger Federer probably has been coached for years on how to do the perfect tennis stroke, right? Theory about exactly how to do it all, right? But when he goes and he's playing in the Wimbledon final, he's not thinking about the theory. He's not seeing the ball and thinking, how high shall I raise my arm, right? How much power shall I use to bring my arm down on the ball? He's just seeing the ball, seeing where he wants to put it, and placing it there. And it's the same here. You can learn the theory and understand the ideas. Don't bring it with you into the field. Don't bring it with you into the conversation. You need all of your mental energy free to focus on the other individual when you're in conversation. If you're not focused on her, if you're focused on your thoughts, what's going in your head, you're not seeing her. You're not seeing any of the data that you need in order to produce an intelligent response. It's so simple in many ways that if you choose to direct your attention onto the lived experience of the moment when in a conversation, you will have all of your resources free to have an intelligent conversation. If you allow yourself to be distracted by thoughts, anxieties, and worries, then you will not have your resources available. You will not be clear in your intent. She won't see your intent and you won't feel your intent, and the conversation will flatline. It's really simple as that. The action is, in action, the key is to warm up, right? It's to understand that at the start you probably won't be able to focus on the lived experience because those thoughts are going to be a whirlpool inside your head, and it's going to be a storm, and you're going to have to settle them down. But you can't forcibly do that. You have to let that happen in its own time, and that's essentially what the process of warming up is. It's allowing that storm to roll until it realizes that there's no place for the thoughts, and you redirect, and you've got more space. You redirect your thoughts onto the lived experience, and then you start having extremely vivacious and natural feeling and amazing conversations, right? And magic comes to it when you're present-minded in the act, and that magic's only allowed, you can only harness that magic when you've warmed up, when you've actually gone in and messed it up a couple of times and just rode that wave. You will get into the flow. Okay, next question. Oh yeah, I was going to say, so that answers your question about DHV. How did your hair grow so quick? I don't know, man. I don't know, Ben. I have no idea how my hair's grown. I shaved it all off about a month ago and it's grown back. And now I've got a sort of 21st century lesbian haircut going on. Can't complain. But I don't know, man. I would love to say it was coconut oil and avocados, but that would be a straight up lie. Sam, I'm a good looking guy. Say so yourself. Funny and all, but I'm only 5'4". My self-esteem is low because of this. All I think about is being short. How can I overcome this? The same way that anyone overcomes anything, mate. If you were 6'2", good looking, tall, 6'2", and well dressed, you'd find something else to be insecure about. I guarantee it. You'd worry that you weren't as intelligent as another guy that was 6'2" and good looking, right? You're comparing yourself to people that are taller than you right now. What about all the people that are the same height or smaller? What about the girls that are 4'11" or 5'2", 5'1", for whom you're a perfect match? You're the perfect size, right? If you constantly compare yourself to people who you believe are better than you in some way, and allow that to be your modus operandi, your natural system of evaluation, then you're going to be deeply depressed for your whole life. But when you start, when you stop comparing yourself to other people and just focus on what you want, right? Do you want an attractive, friendly, beautiful, nice girl who's 5'2", for whom you're the perfect height? Just focus on her, man. Focus on the girl that you want to meet, the person you want to meet. Don't compare yourself to people that have some mundane, societally enforced value that really doesn't mean anything outside of the context of tall, good-looking people are the best, right? It's not as simple as that. Right, next question. AA. Been fixing any cars lately? Hey Sam, I'm 17 and have a motorcycle. Well, you don't need to call anyone if it breaks down. But I can't go to my place to sleep with a girl because I live with my parents. How do you suggest I tell her that I want to go to her place as soon as we get out of the pub, or when I already brought her in front of the house? And how do I go about it? Good question, man. Look, I think this is kind of like sales. There's a lot of parallels between dating, relationships, and sales. And in this case, it's if I were trying to sell you something, let's say in this video, the wrong way to do it would be to do this whole video and then have a sales pitch right at the end, right? Where I just throw a sales pitch at you, because you don't have enough time during this experience with me to actually let that seed of whatever I'm trying to sell grow and blossom in your subconscious mind whilst I'm speaking. If I just strap a quick sales pitch onto the end of this video, you're very unlikely to sign up. However, if I plant that seed at the start, right? If I talk about a course that I'm doing this weekend, right? The social recharge course that I'm doing this weekend, and then the information that I'm talking about during this Q&A relates to that course, and you see how it might be able to help you, then you're having a dialogue in your subconscious mind that will be starting to persuade you that that's the right thing to do, right? That's a sales process. In the same way, if you're meeting up with a potential prospective partner, and right, you have a date, right? You talk about normal stuff, and then right at the end, you're like, hey, so do you want to come back to mine? The answer is probably going to be no, because it's too abrupt. It's too much of a change of pace, change of direction, change of momentum. Instead, it's probably better to plant the seeds early on, right? So one way to do that is to talk about your logistics early on. Talk about who you're living with, right? So your living situation, maybe the living situation that you want to have, maybe talk about her living situation. Who does she live with? What's it like living with them? And maybe if you have that sort of relationship, if you've started to maybe introduce physical touch, right? Holding hands, putting your hand on her knee, some sort of physical contact, then you could, she says, I live with 3 of my crazy friends or something. And you could say, that must make it difficult for you to have guests over, right? You could hint at, the sort of her logistics and what it's been like in the past with people that she's been dating and whether it's good, right? Because now that seed is planted of potentially she's viewing you as that prospective guest that might come over. So you sort of put it out there as early as you can. If you think it's appropriate, I've had many dates with women where it's felt perfectly appropriate to tell them that I want to go home with them within 20 to 30 minutes of the day, right? Very rarely in my experience has that been sort of self-destruction, right? Normally she's either like, no, we're not going home on a first date. We've only met for 20 minutes or something like that. But it's not done in a sort of animosity, the door's closed way. It's just not right now, right? But the seed's still planted. The idea's still there. She knows that you have the confidence to address it, right? You have the confidence to follow through. It's probably not going to be awkward with you. So if you're on a date or even in a bar or a club and you get the opportunity, you feel like you've got that sort of relationship or that connection going with a girl where you could just say, I want to go home with you. I don't think it's ever a bad thing to do. I think the more you can step outside the normal box of how a guy would behave, right? That ingratiating, trying to get her to like you all the time, the more you can get into a state of mind where you're just taking risks, right? You're enjoying yourself and you're being you're giving her the benefit of the doubt that she's got a sense of humor, right? That she can take you at face value, that she's going to enjoy the nature of your interaction that's a bit more forward, a bit more, confident and different and unlike the sort of guys she's interacting with. So I don't think there's any problem with just putting the suggestion out there early, seeing what happens, getting some experience with that, rather than trying to sort of meander your way to the house by suggesting you go to another bar and then finding yourself outside her door. I always think it's better to be as upfront about, sex and the potential for sex as you can, because, men and women are different, but we're not that different. We both have a similar process of, becoming attractive to someone and being stimulated by an individual. And, we don't have to be delicate. We don't have to tread carefully around this topic. The more brazen and confident and forward you can be about that sort of stuff, in most cases, you're going to get brownie points rather than closed doors. Looking forward to Sweden. So now I've moved Sweden forward to July August the 5th. So I'm going to Sweden in August, early August now, not going in June. London's too good right now, but Tusk is over there at the moment. And I might be joining him in Belgrade on the 5th of July. 5th of July, I'm going to be in Belgrade, Serbia. It is not too affected right now by the virus, and it's an amazing place to be right now. Borders are open, people are outside having fun, women are beautiful, accommodation's cheap. If you want to go and approach some people and get back into the flow, Belgrade, Serbia is a great place to go. Cool pot. You should put donation on here for people who appreciate the time you take to do this and help, etc. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I could do that, and I appreciate the idea and the words. I don't really feel like I need to do it though right now. This is what I can just do for you guys for free. I'm very much a believer that what you put out, you get back. I've been constantly throughout my life supported in the belief that if you offer value, you receive value. Not when you expect it, not in the way that you expect it, but it always does happen. And so I don't feel any specific need to put a donation pot here right now. Men first. I'm falling in love with my girlfriend of 8 months and feel a deep sense of shame when day gaming. How to deal with this sense of shame? Dude, I've got to be honest. I don't think you should be... Look, as long as it's honest, it's fine, right? But as soon as it's not honest, it's not okay. So this says, I'm falling in love with my girlfriend of 8 months. I feel a deep sense of shame when day gaming. How to deal with a sense of shame? Does she know you're going out and day gaming? Is she okay with the idea of you approaching other women? Because if you haven't talked to her about it, then you're starting in the wrong place. You're never going to get the sense of satisfaction that you perceive to be at the end of this, right? We're all doing this because we want to grow as people. We want to feel that sense of fulfillment and satisfaction that we're living life on our terms, taking the actions we need to take. If you are hurting someone, consciously or not, throughout that process, then you will not have access to the satisfaction that's available. So you've got to be honest about it. If you haven't told your girlfriend, tell her. If she's not okay with it and you want to approach other women more than you want to be with her, then you have to break up with her. If you want her more than you want to be out approaching other women, then stay with her. Being a man in the 21st century and the idea of the alpha male and the masculine is not any of the things we think of, the archetype of a rugby player or a warrior. It's much more beneath the surface. And one of it is honesty and authenticity, right? Is a big, big one. It's impossible to feel like you're winning as a man and you're living the life that you need to as a man if you are deceiving people trivially in the process. So I strongly recommend you address the situation with your girlfriend. But have the courage to just talk to her face to face about it, man. It will pay dividends. I promise you that. How do you reframe rejection and stop it from ruining a session and getting inside your own head? It's exactly what we talked about before. Rejection is part of success. Each rejection increases your social ability in the moment, right? Rejection is not a rejection of you per se, it's a rejection of the spectrum of light and color that's presented to another individual in a momentary flash of her day in one moment. She has no idea about you. So the idea that when someone doesn't want to talk to us for whatever reason, whether she's, you know, about to go to the hospital, or she's got a boyfriend, or she's got anxiety, the idea that her momentary decision not to talk to us means that she's rejected our personality, our essence of who we are, is utterly crazy. And I don't have a good idea yet of how exactly that fits onto the evolutionary model, but it's certainly not helpful. So the way to reframe rejection is to see the reality of rejection, is to take away all the frames and see that she's not rejecting anything or anyone. She is deciding not to engage in a conversation with a stranger in this moment. It means nothing. Sam, you're the dad I never had. I'm going to cry, bro, if you keep telling me things like that, but I'm glad it's helpful for you. Is approaching easier for good-looking guys? I don't know, man. I think probably yes. And the reason is, it's the idea of the sort of natural, right? Most of the time when you have someone who's a natural, my experience has always been that someone who's a natural is only a natural to the extent that he's had strong, energetic, feminine presence around since youth, right? So all of my friends that are naturally very, very confident with women, it's because either their mothers or their aunties or their early friends were, you know, strong feminine presences, and they became comfortable early on with feminine presences in their life. And so when they were comfortable, then they went to junior school. And so when they started meeting girls in junior school, they were comfortable, so the girls stayed around them. And then that transcended into senior school when they get to 16, 17, 18. And guys that haven't had that feminine attention in early childhood continue not to have it. The guys that had it from a very early age continue to be reinforced that girls are nothing to be afraid of. And they have an understanding of how to act in those situations. So good-looking guys were normally more good-looking when they were children as well, meaning that they would have got female attention from an earlier age, meaning that education process of how to interact with people, but specifically with the opposite sex, that education process started when they were a young child. And as we know from language learning and virtually any ability, children's brains are like sponges. They soak up information in a way that adult minds don't. And so I think good-looking people generally have an advantage because they've had a better systematic reinforcement of their own adequacy from an earlier age. That's how I see it. It doesn't mean as an adult you can't create a new story about yourself. It doesn't mean that you can't become good at communicating. It just means that they have de facto had an advantage if they've had that support from an early age. Now, the caveat to that is that a lot of good-looking people, close friends of mine that I know, their greatest insecurity is that they're good-looking, and so naturally they should be with beautiful women all the time, right? He's a good-looking guy. Why isn't he going out and dating and being in relationships with amazing women? And when they're not, they feel like it must equal some deficit in their personality, right? And what's more of a reason for insecurity than that? If you are a good-looking guy, if you've got all the raw materials and yet still women aren't, you know, every woman's not attracted to you, then inevitably you're going to link that lack of success to flaws in your own personality. And trust me when I say that flaws in your personality cause for much deeper insecurity than flaws in your physical manifestation. It runs a lot deeper, feeling like you're unintelligent or not funny, right? Or not a good person. That is a much deeper insecurity than I'm a bit short or my skin's the wrong color, right? You can overcome the physical with the mental. You can't overcome the mental with the physical. By controversial, I meant questions guys are afraid to ask women and post it for the world to see. Can you make videos talking about Brazilian women? That's something you don't have on your channel. Yeah, man, sure. I think that's a good idea. I'll happily interview women and ask them questions that other people aren't asking. There's a guy called Alexander Grace who's doing that, and he does a really good job of it. So if I was to do that, I would have to know that I would cause him some competition. But I'll give it a go, man. I think that's a good idea. Men first. I have an angry looking face. How can I make myself feel comfortable? Smile, man. I guess you got to smile and laugh, right? Maybe probably bring attention to it. If you think you have an angry looking face, just look angrily at her and just say like, I know I've got a really angry face, but I'm smiling inside, right? Just anytime you have something that's cause for insecurity, if you draw attention to it in a self-deprecating way, show that it doesn't affect your confidence and that you can kind of own your flaws or your perceived flaws, then you turn your flaws into a show of strength, showing that you are so secure about yourself that even things that would normally be cause for insecurity to you, just a part of you, and you love it anyway. So take the piss out of your angry face, man. I've got a lazy eye, as you can all see, and I love it. Doesn't cause me any harm. No one else has it, and I like it, right? It's just something. It's like I'm talking to a guy, I can just be like, by the way, I am looking at you. I haven't seen another girl over there. It's a lazy eye, right? You can draw attention to it in a playful way, shows that you're not vulnerable to insecurity and to self-doubt. And then it means that she feels more confident teasing you, right? It means she can say, I know you're checking out her ass, your eye just drifted over there, right? She's going to have more confidence. She's going to trust that you have a sense of humor and that you have a level of security. And that's going to give you a platform to connect. Because if she's worried about offending you all the time, she's not going to go for you because it's a show of weakness. And I mean, it doesn't bode well for your potential future relationship, right? If you're getting offended by things like that, really doesn't bode well for any potential future relationship you're going to have with her. Cool pot. Miracle Grow. Okay. Elwin Van Dolce, that's a great name. That wins award for the best name we've seen today so far. Been approaching since last week after the lockdown in Amsterdam. I was a bit worried about the reactions, but I've noticed that I can actually get as close to the girl as I do usually. Your opinion? I think that's awesome, man. I'm just happy to read that out to other people because it's been my experience as well. The women that I've approached have been in many ways more open and normal. It's been like an adventure, the couple of dates that I've been on since I've been back. It's felt like a real kind of personal adventure, right? You two are sort of have this understanding that you're not worried about it for yourselves. There's some sort of agreement. There's some sort of shared experience. And it feels like you're sort of walking through the matrix. And so, yeah, I think that most people aren't really worried about any social distancing right now, unless they have a need to be. For example, I'm giving it the big one about not being worried about it, but I'm still not going to go home and see my old man because I understand there is some risk and I don't want to bring a death sentence home to my dad, right? So it's perfectly natural that some people are more shaken by it than others, right? But some people are more cautious. They have cause to be. I'm not putting anyone who's vulnerable in a position of danger, and so I have no cause for concern about myself. But it's, I'm unfortunate in that case. If I were living with my dad or someone with, some sort of vulnerability or deficiency, it would be another question. So you just got to be respectful and understanding of everyone else's unique situations, right? And you go for people without masks who look friendly, who maybe look open, have their shoulders back, flick their hair, are engaging with the world in a normal way. I want to start a toilet roll company to stop constipation. Do you think it's a good market? Nah, man, I think you should invest in affordable dates. They're really good for unclogging. So I don't think you need to worry about toilet roll. Just think about the types of fruits that people want to be eating full of fiber, right? What do you think about Coach Carl? Don't know who it is, but I feel like sometimes these comments about other coaches are just trying to give them exposure. So it's good marketing for other people, but why not? Sam, why are you so good looking? I don't think I am, man, really. I think I just, I never was considered in any way good looking. When I was at school, no one ever told me that. I never had that opinion of myself. I think confidence makes you better looking, honestly. I think confidence and presentation makes you seem better looking than you are. I don't think I would turn heads if I just didn't look after myself in any way, never went to the gym, walked with my head down and my shoulders slumped, no one would notice. No one would notice anything. People look better if we perceive them to have qualities that are thought of as attractive. How did you entask me? That's a question for another time. I like it, but that gives us something to talk about next Q&A, which will be next week. And on that note, I'm going to leave it there. Just over an hour. I really appreciate you guys watching, and I'm excited to hear about your success stories in the coming months. It's been a tough time for everyone, but we are approaching the bright light at the end of a very dark tunnel. There's something in the air, times are changing, things are looking up. I am excited. We've still got a couple of hours of sunshine, so if anyone is on the cusp of going out and actually getting going, getting cracking, then I strongly recommend you use this video as your little platform, your sprint platform to go and get your first approaches in. There's no reason to. I can see women from my window outside. Maybe not the kind I want to approach, but there are some there. And so just use this. This is your fuel. This is your first step. This video is your excuse to get started. So go out there, approach the people you want to approach, and tell me how it goes. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in under a week.